Now, how is the program also addressing the issue of metering? Because that seemed to be a major complaint for most consumers.
Sure.
Actually, many consumers would actually, they don't mind paying if they are sure that they are paying what they consume.
Yes. I mean, subject to those who are habitual thieves when it comes to power, because many people still think power is a right, yes, and we do that, and it's across the classes, not really restricted to any particular class. But on the issue of metering is closely associated with enumerating. Enumeration means you need to know the customers in your network. Don't forget, this industry was what it was and all that. So with the private sector coming in now, a lot of things are showing up that were not even in the documents in the data room. So there's a learning curve to so many of these things. For example, everyone has expressed concern that the 6 million consumer figure placed at the privatization point, can it really be correct, given the genuineness of our population? So there are a lot of enumeration exercises going on now. Now, on the metering is a function of tariff, as I've said several times. But there are ways you can address that. And I know there are initiatives being taken place, working with the discos to ensure that other people who are willing to come into that space can come in. That can happen, provided, of course, the meters are smart meters. They must answer to modern day needs. We don't want to bring antiquated meters into the system, because the idea is to phase out some of the old meters that we have, because it's one thing to have a meter, it's another thing to make sure the meter is working and meeting the needs of both the distribution company and the consumer. But yes, it's happening, and the regulator is constantly engaging with distribution companies. They are licensing some new meter providers. Most of the meters are sourced from here, and it's a slow but steady process. Again, it's on track. We will get there. And what we want to do is to ensure that we remove many cases of estimated billings, or crazy billings as they call them. Because once you eliminate that, then consumer confidence will increase. And I agree with you that honest people are willing to pay more if they see that the product is there. So we're on track as well.
In terms of funding that you did mention, don't you think that the distribution companies can actually make more money if they have every consumer metered?
Oh, naturally. I mean, that's the way you make money. The more people who get power, the more money you have. It's a no-brainer. Like I told you in the past, when it didn't matter whether or not you were making money from the sector, there was no priority to metering. But now we have to meter a lot of customers, and like I said, we're right on track to do that.
Okay, the Azure power that you talked about, how many megawatts is that supposed to?
415 megawatts into the grid.
Yeah.
They started with in turbines of 153 megawatts, and I think they've gotten the third one by March next year. The third of the 153s will be in. So we'll get a full complement of the 450 megawatts.
So by March, we'll have extra 450 megawatts.
In fact, they are actually ahead of schedule.
And we're likely to see power.
They are doing well, but we must quickly say that they're doing well because they're riding on the bank of a payment guarantee. NBET has guaranteed that they will be paid. And this is the point we keep making in the power sector. If you do not have an instrument to take care of the gap, you will not find investors. Azura did that because they had a payment guarantee. So you have to do that for other members across the sector, because that power is going to go into the grid. And I can assure you it's not going to go into at the same price as you are getting from maybe Egbe and all the others. So you need to find a way of balancing that. Otherwise, you will create special producers within the same industry, which is not very good.
All right. So what are the major achievements, perhaps, within this year? That should be January 18th.
Yeah.
The passage of the PIB
that's
bills. Yeah. How will the passage of that bill is a portion of the bill that was passed? How will that help with growth?
Just to quickly refresh your mind, when the PIB, the famous PIB, was sought to be passed, it was an amalgamation of almost all the plethora of laws we had governing the petroleum sector. So they tried to put everything into this one document, and it was some massive voluminous documents, and it also had a lot of controversial issues. For example, what do host communities get out of it? What's the fiscal regime, the powers of the minister, and all that. And each time it went up to the National Assembly, it got into brick walls. So they said, look, sensibly, why don't we break it up into the 4 component parts and then take them from the least controversial of the bills and begin to pass them. So we have the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill. We're going to have the Nigerian Petroleum Fiscal Bill. We're going to have the Host Community Bill, and then the Upstream and Downstream Administration Bill. Those are the 4 bills that are anticipated under the new regime. But it started with the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill. And what that's going to do essentially is that it's going to usher in a new era of transparency in the management of the oil industry, because it is going to it's going to break up the current NNPC as we know it into component parts. You're going to have the asset management company, you're going to have the Nigerian Petroleum Liabilities Company, then you're going to have the Nigerian Petroleum Company, the NPC. That will be the operational arm. It will be like the NNPC without the current baggage and all that. And that is the company that will be owned 20% by BP, 40% by the Minister of Petroleum Incorporated, and by the Minister of Finance Incorporated, another 40%. Over a 10-year period, they're expected to shed 10% to the private sector. And they are allowed to go into the market to raise money. They will run like just any other company would do. They will have one regulator. That's what the bill envisages. The Nigerian Petroleum Regulatory Commission, pretty much. I'm sure that sounds like the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. But it's going to be one regulator who is going to replace the several disjointed regulatory activities currently in the sector. So the DPR, NAPIMS, all these other guys as we know them today will sort of give way to this central commission, regulatory commission. And they are supposed to bring international best practices in the way they issue the licenses and all that. But significantly, the minister will no longer be the one to issue licenses or whether discretionary or otherwise. It will be run the way you run. It will be an open bid exercise. People will be pre-qualified, and there will be no room for any discretionary allocations. That is one of the significant departure from the PIB, because there was this perennial dispute as to whether the ministers didn't want to let go. But under the new regime, and to tell you it enjoys support across board, it was passed by the Senate, and then the House passed it without any amendment whatsoever. So it's a good, it portends good, it looks upward. Right. But let me quickly add, we're talking
You just have to hold your thoughts there. We'll have to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue with that conversation, and I would love to know how that is also going to solve this problem of fuel scarcity. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue with this conversation. To stay with us.